light drizzle blurred checkpoint number 14 that night. Wind swept through a rusty metal sign, cold and gloomy. Rex, the seasoned Malinois K9, suddenly let out a long howl in the yard, his eyes locked on a trailer parked off to the side. He charged toward it, scratching fiercely at the rear door as if trying to dig out something hidden inside. Lieutenant Nathan Cole stepped out immediately. He had been on night shifts countless times, but this was the first time Rex's eyes made him feel like something was off. The trailer had unfamiliar license plates, a dull, silver-gray paint job, and was parked at a strange angle as if it had broken down. The driver was a man around 40 years old, wearing a baseball cap, chewing on a toothpick, his face disturbingly calm. "Brake failure." I pulled over to check, the man said, holding out a stack of papers with all the proper stamps. Nathan shined his flashlight, sweeping it across the frame of the trailer. No signs of oil leakage, no burning smell. Everything looked too normal, too by the book. But Rex would not back away from the rear door. He was not growling at the man. He did not look at the driver. His eyes stayed glued to the trailer, like something was in there that no one could see, but he could smell. "What are you transporting?" Nathan asked. "Frozen goods. Chicken, deep frozen. Got the documents, too." The man held up the paperwork, his faint smile rehearsed 100 times over. There was no warrant to search the vehicle, no clear signs of a crime. Nathan knew he could not detain the truck just because of a gut feeling, or because a dog howled in the middle of the night. He noted down the license plate, the time it stopped, and the intended route. Then he gave a slight nod, signaling the truck to move on. The trailer disappeared into the darkness as if it had never been there. But Rex stayed rooted to the spot, his eyes fixed on the direction it had just vanished. That night, Nathan could not sleep. Rex lay next to the bed, but did not curl up the way he usually did. He whimpered softly in a slow, steady rhythm, then turned his head toward the window. His eyes were not those of a normal animal. They were the eyes of something that had once smelled death. At 3:27 in the early morning, the landline in the guardroom rang. On the other end was the dispatcher from a neighboring county. The woman's voice cracked as she spoke. "We just received a missing person report. Female, 15 years old, name is Lila Gomez. The last footage from traffic cameras shows her walking alone along Highway 14, right near the spot where that trailer pulled over last night. No orders were needed, no further confirmation either." Nathan jumped out of bed, and Rex, even though no one had called him, was already waiting at the door. A case had just begun, and it all started with a howl in the middle of a misty night. The next morning, Nathan did not report to his superiors. He did not trust the protocol, not because it was wrong, but because it could never understand the eyes of a dog that had once sniffed out explosives in the rubble, saved 4 lives from beneath a collapsed building, and pulled him out of enemy fire during a raid at the border last year. Rex had never been wrong, and now, once again, he was eerily silent. Nathan gently brushed Rex's back as he started the car. He said nothing, but Rex leapt into the back seat on his own eyes, fixed on the window like he already knew exactly where they needed to go. They returned to the stretch of highway where the trailer had stopped. The tire marks were still there, faint but not completely erased. The wind rustled through the dry wheat fields, on either side carrying with it the soft crackle of broken stalks, like someone whispering from beyond the horizon. Rex began sniffing close to the ground, moving step by step, then veered off to the right shoulder where the dirt appeared slightly disturbed. Nathan crouched down. Something was glinting in the soil, a small plastic keychain shaped like a cat, muddy and broken in half. He picked it up, sealed it in a zip bag. The sharp edge of the broken plastic scratched his hand, a tiny detail, but one that made his blood rise. It was not the pain from the cut, but the sudden gut-wrenching feeling that something had happened here, quick, silent, and brutal. They moved on to the thin forest behind the gas station, a place Nathan had never entered. The area had been abandoned in recent years due to landslides, but Rex insisted on leading the way, pushing through knee-high brambles and circling into a sunken clearing. Then he stopped. There, in the wet earth, was a small burlap sack. Rex let out a low whine, gently pawing at one side of it. Nathan pulled it open. Inside was a red child's sweater with a few dried spots of blood around the collar. Not much, just a few shrunken drops, but enough for the picture to begin taking shape. Strangely, at the bottom of the sack was an old phone, its screen shattered but the SIM card still intact. Nathan inserted it into a forensic reader. The last text message contained only 3 words: "I was taken." Back at the station, Nathan ran into the homeless man who often wandered the area. Today, he was warming himself beside an old metal drum, staring into the flames like he was waiting for them to speak. Nathan sat beside him and handed over a cup of hot coffee. "You once said you heard banging inside a trailer." The man nodded, eyes still on the fire. "Once in June last year. The truck stopped in the same place. Around midnight. I was out looking for copper wire when I heard a faint banging like a small hand tapping metal. Then, a whimper. Really soft. Like a kitten stuck inside a tin box." "Why didn't you call the police?" "I did. Twice. First time they said I was drunk. Second time nobody showed." He took a slow sip, then pulled out a wrinkled piece of paper from his coat and handed it to Nathan. It was a crude sketch, a trailer with a small air vent at the back. And right there, he had drawn a handprint. A tiny, twisted hand pressed against cold steel. I cannot draw, but I saw it. Through the vent. Back at the station, Nathan reopened the case files of missing persons near the border over the past 3 years. There were a total of 8 unsolved cases. Most were women or minors, and the majority were non-citizens. One thing linked them all. Every single one had vanished within a 12-mile radius about 20 kilometers of Highway 14, one of the state's busiest freight corridors. Then he found something that made his skin crawl. The 3 most recent disappearances all coincided with transport trucks registered under the same logistics code, TRN-CO472. That was the exact code on the trailer Rex had clawed at that night. Nathan submitted an urgent inquiry to the Federal Transportation Authority. While waiting for a response, he went back to the blood-stained cloth. With the help of a friend in forensics, he had the blood tested for DNA. The result came back shortly after. The blood belonged to a teenage female of Latin descent, matching the records of Lila Gomez. This was no longer a hunch. The picture was becoming real, piece by piece, in blood-dirt scent and those quiet stares in the dark. That night, Nathan did not go home. He lay on a cot at the station. Rex lay beside him, resting his head on Nathan's leg, eyes still wide open. The room was pitch dark. No lights, no sound. Just the wind and a faint, almost ghostly sound, like metal being scratched from far away. It did not come through his ears. It came through his chest. At exactly 2:11 in the morning, the station phone rang again. A voice no name spoke. "Do not dig too deep, Lieutenant. Some things are not meant to be uncovered." Then the call ended. No number, no trace. But Rex, at the very moment the line went dead, let out a fierce growl. He jumped down, ran to the door, and hissed low and sharp like an invisible enemy was waiting just beyond the threshold. The next morning, Nathan made a decision. He would not wait for orders. He took the patrol vehicle and drove Rex to an old storage yard near the border, once used for maintenance of outdated trailers. The place had been abandoned for years, but Rex was not letting it go. He led Nathan to a corner sealed with rusted wire, and in the cold, misty morning, surrounded by moldy planks and rotting wood, The dog suddenly howled a long, high-pitched cry that sent shivers through Nathan's spine. Rex was staring at an old metal cabinet. Nathan yanked the door open. The hinges screeched. Inside was a small, dusty backpack. And in the backpack was a notebook. The cover was torn, but inside were messy scrawls, half English, half Spanish, page after page, each with a girl's name: Lila Gomez, Carla Mendez, Sofia Ruiz. Next to every name was a date, nothing else. Except for the last one, it was not crossed out. It had just been written. 3 days ago. Nathan turned the wheel and veered off onto a dirt road leading to the Lark Hill Motel, once a common stop for long-haul truckers. In the case file on Lila Gomez, there had been a detail that was initially overlooked. A motel staff member had reported a stolen phone, and that phone signal had last pinged near the trailer that later vanished. The motel manager was a woman in her early 50s, salt and pepper hair, soft-spoken, but with eyes that were anything but harmless. "We just rent rooms. We do not get involved in our guests' private matters," she said after Nathan showed his badge. "Do you have security cameras?" "We do, but the system's been down since last month. A technician came to fix it but never got around to putting it back up." "What about an employee named Marisol?" "She used to work here." Her expression froze. Her eyes flicked slightly. "She quit a few weeks ago. Left with her boyfriend. Did not leave any contact information." "Who was the boyfriend? I do not know. I only saw him once. He drove a truck, a freezer truck." Nathan stared. "Do you remember the license plate?" "No." I did not look closely. Honestly, I did not want to remember. That was not a refusal. It was avoidance. As they left the motel, Rex kept turning his head. He did not bark or scratch like he usually did, but he turned back 3 times. Each time his eyes were fixed on the door of room 14, its curtains closed since early morning. Nathan quietly noted the room number. Back at the station, he received a phone call from an unknown number. A man's voice, low and deliberately hushed. "You should stop. These are not regular people. We tried once and someone from my group never came back. I do not know who you are. You do not need to. Just understand this. If you go any deeper, you will touch something that should never be touched." The call ended. No trace, no source. But this time, Nathan was not surprised. He was getting used to nameless warnings. The next morning, he returned to the trucking company in Canyon Trail. This time, the office was shut. A note taped to the glass read, "Temporarily closed for internal audit." But strangely, the lot behind the building still had trucks. And Rex, the moment he got out of the vehicle, ran straight to a corner of the lot where a fresh oil stain glistened on the concrete and part of the wall had paint scraped off. Nathan walked over and touched the wall. It felt rough. Then he saw it beneath the faded silver paint, written in black marker. "They locked us in the bottom of the truck. No light, no air. No one answered." At that exact moment, there was a faint clicking sound, like a padlock turning. Nathan drew his gun, spun around, but saw no one. The lot was empty, dead, silent, except for Rex standing in the middle of the yard, quietly growling eyes locked on a wall-mounted camera. The camera was not moving, but its red light was blinking. Someone was still watching. Later that afternoon, Nathan returned to the homeless man's spot, the one who had shown him the sketch. But the man was gone. His tent had been torn apart, his old blankets partially burned. There were drag marks like someone or something had been pulled, leading from the tent into the alley behind. In the corner under a pile of rotting trash, Nathan found an old hood just like the kind the man used to wear and a half-burned scrap of paper. Only a few words were left. Warning: do not let the dog get close. No body, no blood. But the man had vanished as if he had never existed. Rex kept sniffing around the trash, his eyes unusually restless. He did not howl, but for the first time, Nathan saw him tremble. That night at the station, an envelope was pushed through the door slot. No delivery person, no fingerprints. Inside was a photograph, the old trailer taken from above. The photo was black and white, grainy, but inside the trailer, through a ventilation slit, something was unmistakably visible. A tiny human hand pressed against the metal mesh. Below the photo, a handwritten note. This is the last thing they left behind. That night, Nathan sat at his desk, the printed photo lying in front of him. Rex was at his feet. The room was bathed in soft yellow light, silent enough for the ticking of the clock to echo. But inside Nathan's head, everything was chaos. He remembered the old homeless man's words, "A truck stops here every month." The blonde secretary with ties to immigration. The motel manager who said, "I do not want to remember." And now, every single one of them was silent or gone. The silence now was not about fear. It was a punishment, a method used by those in power to ensure that trailer door was never opened again. The next morning, he called Laura, a former coordinator who had worked with him during a drug trafficking case 2 years earlier. She had left the force after being attacked right outside her house just days after submitting a report on internal corruption. "The people behind this are not just trafficking humans," Nathan Laura said over the phone. "It is a chain of complicity. Some nod, some turn away, but all of them stay silent. Do you still have the documents from back then?" "The ones about the southern freight routes, I cannot send them over email. You will have to meet me in person." That afternoon, Nathan met Laura at an old warehouse, now her art studio. She handed him a folder and warned, "Only open this if you are sure no one is following you, and keep your dog with you at all times." Rex was already sniffing around the room, but suddenly stopped near a small door in the back. He let out a low whine. Nathan looked over. The door was locked, but through the crack came a strange smell. Burned plastic and bleach. "Has anyone else used this space recently?" he asked. Laura shook her head, face pale. "No, that door was sealed shut a long time ago." That night, Nathan opened the folder. Inside was a list of transport routes that had once been investigated for suspected human smuggling, but the cases were shelved due to insufficient evidence. One of the routes belonged to Blue Ridge Haulage Company, the parent company of the logistics branch in Canyon Trail. And the internal supervisor at that time was the same regional deputy director who had ignored Nathan's reports all week. The shadow behind this was growing. Nathan drove straight to the regional office, demanded to see the deputy director, but was shut down instantly. "He is out of town. No appointments, no exceptions." As he was heading back to the parking lot, a young employee stopped him looking nervous and rushed. "You are the one investigating the girl, Lila, right?" Nathan nodded. The young man looked around, then shoved a USB stick into his hand. "I cannot let her disappear like the others, but I also cannot let them trace it back to me." Nathan took it. Their eyes met for a brief moment, enough to know the young man had just risked everything to speak the truth. Back at the station, Nathan plugged the USB into a secure device. Inside was a single video footage from an internal security camera at a suburban freight depot. The screen was black and white, but the image was clear. The date matched the night Lila went missing. The trailer pulled in at 1:34 in the morning. A man opened the back door. In the darkness, 2 small, thin figures were pushed out. One of them collapsed onto the concrete. Another man dragged them inside. The door slammed shut. Rex, who had been resting at Nathan's feet, suddenly stood up. He let out a low, muffled howl and froze. It was not because of what he saw, it was because of what he heard. In the video, just as the trailer door closed, there was a faint sound, the metallic scratch, right before the footage cut to black. the exact same sound from that night. When Rex howled for the first time, Nathan exhaled, tightening his grip on the mouse. This video somehow had not been deleted. But if he submitted it was, he sure it would not disappear? Was he sure the person who gave him the USB would not vanish too, like the old man or the motel worker, Marisol? He looked over at Rex. The dog sat still, eyes fixed on the station door. That look, once again, seemed to say, "We have not reached the end, but we have started down a path that cannot be turned back from." Night fell quickly. Nathan drove north toward an abandoned industrial zone, once a food processing plant. According to the files on the USB, this place had once served as an off-the-record transit hub for several trailers with no registered destination, known internally as the Gray Zone. He did not tell anyone. He did not request a warrant. He brought only Rex and a gun. Rex sat in the back seat, eyes never leaving the darkness outside, as if he already knew this time would not be like the others. The plant was a cold block of concrete wrapped in rusted fencing. Inside, the cement floor had crumbled, the ceiling had partially collapsed, but there were fresh signs trash had been cleared from one corner, some wires were crudely reconnected, and a tiny surveillance camera had been mounted near the main door. Someone was still using this place. Rex pulled Nathan toward a side hallway, where the beam from the flashlight caught a dried blood stain on the stair rail. The blood was dark old, but the long smear showed that someone had once tried to crawl up. At the second floor, they came to a small room locked from the inside. Rex let out a low whine. Nathan banged on the door. "I am a police officer. I am not here to arrest you. I just want to hear what you have to say." Silence. Then, a faint click. The door cracked open. A man stepped out, thin, disheveled hair, sunken eyes like he had not slept in weeks. His hand trembled as he held an empty handgun. "I knew this day would come," he muttered. "I cannot take that scratching anymore." Nathan clenched his fists. "You were the driver for the TRN KO 472 run." The man nodded. "I did not choose it, they gave it to me. I just drove. They paid. I kept my head down. But that night, I heard crying, soft. And when I opened the vent, I saw a little girl, tiny hand pressed to the mesh. No screaming, just looking at me. What did you do?" I shut it. I could not. I was scared. Scared of what? Of dying. Wind blew through the broken window. The air was thick with rust and something else, something sharp like fear, buried too deep. The man sank to the floor, eyes locked with Nathan's. "There's another shipment. Tomorrow night. It won't pass any checkpoints. They're going through the forest, near the old military cemetery. No license plates. They switch trailers halfway. Are there people inside? Always." As soon as Nathan left the factory grounds, a black SUV with no license plates started tailing from a distance. Rex noticed first. He growled low, then turned toward Nathan, his eyes blazing. Nathan did not run. He pulled over, opened the door for Rex. The dog leapt out, bolting toward the shadows, his paws hitting the ground with the rhythm of marching boots. But the SUV stayed still. Then its headlights flared, shining straight into Nathan's face. No one got out. No words. Then it backed away, turned, disappeared into the night. When Nathan returned to the station, he found the front door slightly open. No signs of forced entry, no robbery. But on his desk, where he had left his notebook, was something new, a small rubber wristband. The kind hospitals give to children. On it was a name, Lila. Nathan had never released the victim's name to the public. Rex stood frozen beside the desk, growled softly, then howled a long, strained howl that seemed to break off at the end, like the spirit of a little girl had just passed through the room. In that moment, Nathan understood this was no longer an investigation. It was a calling. a calling from the other side of silence, where only one loyal creature who could not speak and one man who no longer believed in orders were left to answer. The evening rain came softly like a breath, but carried a different kind of chill, not from the air, but from somewhere deep inside the stone walls. Nathan sat in his patrol car watching the GPS display blink in sync with his heartbeat. The signal for the next trailer had just gone active, a coded alert only insiders could decode. A 6-digit string. No license plate, no cargo label. Just one message in transit. He did not report it to dispatch, did not request backup. He sent a single message to Laura. It's moving, headed toward the cemetery route. Rex sat quietly in the back seat, but as Nathan pressed the gas pedal, the dog suddenly perked up, turned and stared hard out the passenger side window toward an empty field. Nathan followed his gaze. There was nothing, just an open stretch of darkness until a lightning bolt slashed across the sky. In that instant of blinding light, he saw it, a figure, standing in the middle of the field, not moving, not sheltering from the rain, no face. Then the flash vanished, and so did the figure. Rex gave a low hiss, but he did not bark. He was not afraid he was recognizing something. The car cut through the western woods leading toward the old military cemetery abandoned since the 1970s, once the burial ground of thousands of unnamed soldiers. Locals no longer went there. The grass grew waist-high, but on the underground freight map it was labeled a switch point where trailers were swapped mid-route to evade federal checks. Rex stood up growling under his breath. When they were about 300 meters, nearly 1,000 feet from the site, the dog leapt forward, bracing his front paws on the dashboard nose pressed against the windshield. Nathan killed the headlights, slowed the car. The rain began to fall harder, and then he saw it. A grayish bronze trailer, taillights dim and flickering, parked right beneath a massive eucalyptus tree in the middle of the graveyard. No cab, no driver. Just the trailer alone, like a massive coffin surrounded by rows of ghostly tombstones. Nathan shut off the engine, drew his gun, opened the door. Rex was the first out, moving fast, but silent, heading straight for the trailer. Rain hammered his hat, growing heavier with each step. Wind whipped up dead leaves from the soil. There was no sound from inside the trailer, but Rex had started scratching again. The back door had a padlock, recently locked but scratched like someone had slammed it shut in a panic. Nathan swept his flashlight quickly over the lock, then quietly reached for his specialized key. Within seconds, the padlock clicked open. He took a deep breath, hand resting on the door latch. Step back. A voice came from behind him. Nathan spun instantly, gun raised in the direction of the sound. A man in a tactical field jacket stood beneath the tree face, hidden beneath a hood flashlight, aimed at the ground to conceal his features. "You should not open that alone," the man continued. "If there is someone inside, you might not be able to protect them. If there is no one, you will be the first to be blamed." "Who are you?" Nathan demanded. The man said nothing. He held up a badge just long enough to flash it, then dropped it quickly. "I used to be on the other side," he said, "where things like this were labeled, mislabeled cargo. I walked away. Now I live in the woods." Rex did not bark. He stepped forward, sniffed near the man's pants, then stopped. No growl, no tension. He recognized this man. Nathan exhaled. "There is someone inside the trailer." "There is the man," said his voice low and heavy like a stone dropping. "How many I do not know. I only hear one was crying, another was knocking. Then we open it." The door creaked, slowly open hinges, groaning like a tomb being unearthed after centuries. Inside it was pitch black. A blast of cold air rolled out like it came from a freezer. No scent of blood, no sound, until a breath, thin as smoke, from the far right corner. Rex leapt in first. He sniffed close to the floor, then abruptly turned, whined, and started scratching at a wood panel fitted tightly to the trailer wall. Nathan lit it with his flashlight. A knock, 3 taps, short, short, long. Morse code. "There is someone inside the wall," Nathan whispered, then pried at the wood with a crowbar. When the panel fell away, it revealed a small cavity just large enough for a child. Inside, curled up and barely conscious, was a young girl. Her eyes were wide open, her skin pale and cold with fear. Around her wrist was a small rubber hospital band. Lila. But as Nathan lifted her out, the other man's flashlight swept across the interior and lit up 2 round holes in the trailer wall. Not storage compartments, ventilation ports. Once someone else had been watching through them. Now, just empty space. "How many more?" Nathan asked quietly. The man turned away, silent. Then finally said, "It could be 1. It could be 10. They never use just 1 trailer." A howl rang out. Rex. He stood against the right wall of the trailer claws, scraping the steel floor where there was no door, no blood, no markings. But his eyes were locked, as if he could see something no one else could. A call, not from the living, but from behind a door no one had dared to open. Lila was placed in the back seat of the patrol car, wrapped in Nathan's heavy coat. She said nothing. Her eyes were wide, but unfocused. The kind of look that stares straight through people, as if her soul had stepped out and only her body had remained behind. Rex sat beside her, eyes fixed on her face, and strangely the girl reached out and touched his head. No fear, no surprise, just a soft touch like she had known him already. "She knows him," Nathan said. The man in the tactical jacket gave a small nod. "That dog was outside the trailer before, wasn't it, 3 days ago? I saw it. It howled, then walked away. No one understood. But maybe it understood them." "Them?" "The children," the man whispered. "They no longer speak, but they still send signals. Through knocks, through scent, through vibrations only animals can feel." Rex gave a low whimper. Nathan opened the rear compartment of the trailer. The air inside was still thick with the stench of burned plastic, cold metal, and something faintly like chloroform. On the floor, tiny scattered footprints trailed off beneath a metal grate leading to the drainage corner. "Sewage network?" Nathan asked. "No." "Older," the man replied. "Military access tunnels. Decades ago, the Army built a relay station beneath this graveyard. The tunnels were erased from modern maps, but they know. They use the tunnels to hide people and to move them. When someone is too weak, they do not leave bodies. They send them down, into places no one looks." Suddenly, Rex lunged at the grate, clawing hard. The screech of metal cut through the air. His paws scraped so fiercely that blood splattered across the steel, but he did not stop. "What is he hearing?" Nathan asked, tense. Not hearing, feeling. A low-frequency vibration from underground. Humans cannot pick it up, but they animals sense it clearly. Especially ones that have smelled death before. Nathan aimed his flashlight deep through the grate. The beam struck damp concrete below. There was a rusted manhole cover marked with an old military code, ATX-14. He and the man worked together to loosen the barrier. After several minutes, the grate came free, revealing the heavy circular lid. They pulled it open, and a cold draft burst upward, hitting them like a slap. Nathan strapped on his headlamp and gestured for Rex to stay, but Rex growled and jumped down first. "There is no stopping him now," Nathan muttered. The man followed, flashlight and combat knife in hand. The tunnel was damp and narrow, barely shoulder height. The air was thick with rust, mildew, and lye. Their flashlights swept across the walls where faint claw marks scratched the surface like someone once tried to climb out. A few steps in, Rex stopped. He tilted his head. Then, the sound came. Tap, 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 tap. Not water, not rats. Fingers tapping on steel pipe. Rex let out a long, aching howl. All three froze. Nathan lit the direction of the sound. A broken pipe jutted out of the wall, exposing a narrow crack. Inside, a shadow moved. Unclear, but it moved. "Is someone in there?" Nathan called. Silence. Then, tap, tap. Short, long, short. A Morse code sequence. Nathan listened carefully. His eyes widened. Layers. Layers, the man asked. "It means levels. Multiple levels," Nathan said, gripping the flashlight tighter. "There is not just one trailer, not just one container. They have built a system." The man swallowed hard. Like a nest, a transfer system, like a beehive. Multiple shells, multiple levels. Some trailers are just outer covers. Rex growled. He turned down the left corridor where there were no visible clues, but the walls bore faint handprints, small, worn by scratching. A few more steps, they reached a small chamber. Steel door, sealed with cement. On the surface, drawn in black charcoal, was a circle with 3 slashes through it, the symbol used by wartime military transport units. Nathan took a breath, turned the handle. The door creaked open. Inside, no people, but hundreds of children's items, rubber sandals, baby blankets, stuffed animals, hospital wristbands. Everything coated in dust as if it had been untouched for years, and on the wall was a list, handwritten, trembling. Mila, Javier, Rena, Zoe, Brandon. Names, ages, dates of disappearance, and at the bottom a shaky line of text, "Do not let them go silent. They are still knocking." Below the list was something else, a dog collar leather torn. The name engraved, Ruby, K9, unit number 04. Rex stepped forward, sniffed, then stood still. No barking, no growling. He simply bowed his head, silently, as if he had just met a fallen comrade. The moment Rex lowered his head beside K9 Ruby's torn collar, a chill ran down Nathan's spine. Some deaths go unrecorded. No funerals, no medals. They sink into the ground like they never existed except for the cold, hollow look left in the eyes of the ones who survived. The man beside him shone his flashlight on the wall. Beneath the list of names was a crude diagram drawn in chalk on the concrete, 3 parallel tunnels, all meeting at a triangle-shaped junction. Each branch was marked with a timestamp and a code name: Trailer 6A Transfer Hub 9B and Stone Shaft R14. Nathan understood now this was no longer just a holding place. It was a human transport network built decades ago in the 1970s and still running like a shadow system no one knew existed. "Where are we on this map?" Nathan asked. The man lit up a red marker on the diagram, an X, right above Shaft R14. A narrow concrete stairway appeared behind the wall Rex had scratched through. It was steep, damp, and had no handrails. Below was pure darkness, no reflection, no light, not even sound. Rex led the way. Nathan followed. The man took the rear. 13 steps, then 7 more. Finally, they reached a chamber. Their flashlights swept over a cylindrical space in the center, a round iron cage welded from vertical bars. Above it, a string of dead light bulbs hung from old wiring. Pinned to the cage walls were bits of paper, names, medical instructions, dates of injection. Next to the cage stood a metal table. On it, used syringes, wrist restraints, and a notebook. Nathan opened it. The first page read, "Directive Children under 10. Prioritize nonverbal groups." The second page detailed each batch processed. No names, just numbers. But in the margins of every page, Someone had written in shaky, slanted handwriting, "Please do not be silent anymore. They are still knocking." Suddenly a sound from behind. Footsteps. All three men turned off their lights, flattening against the wall. Nathan signaled Rex to stay quiet. A figure appeared in the faint glow from the overhead vent, a man holding a headlamp and a radio. Trailer System 6A processed. Shaft R14 not yet cleared. Rex gave a low hiss. As the man turned to adjust the radio, Rex lunged. He did not bark. He did not growl. He leapt, clamped down on the man's arm, ripping the radio loose. The headlamp flew off. Nathan rushed in. Within seconds, the man was pinned, face down on the floor. "How many are still alive?" Nathan barked. "I do not know. I only handle the drop-offs." "Where are they?" I just bring the vehicles. The real coordinator is above me." Who silence? Rex growled louder, teeth closing near his wrist. "Laura," the man screamed. Nathan froze. He could not believe what he had heard. Laura, the one who had given him the documents, the one who warned him about the darkness. The one who helped him connect all the dots. How? The man groaned. "She handles second-tier coordination. Every logistics code goes through her system. She is not working alone." Nathan tied him up, dragged him out of the chamber, and called for an emergency check-in at the station. No one responded. When he got back, the door was still closed. No sign of forced entry. But on his desk, the computer monitor had been shut off. In the inbox was a single new message. No subject line, just one sentence. "You know too much already, but it is not too late to stay silent." Rex barked loudly, for the first time completely uncontrolled. The sound ripped through the night like a siren. And at that exact moment, the station phone rang. Nathan picked it up. "Your station will be audited. Someone has reported you for abuse of authority, unauthorized entry into evidence storage, and leaking sensitive information. My advice, get that dog of yours re-evaluated." Click. Nathan slumped to the floor. This fight was no longer about saving one child. It was about standing against an entire system, one that knew how to pretend it was deaf-blind and how to erase everything behind it. But Rex was still here. The dog sat by the door, ears alert, eyes locked onto the night sky, as if he heard something far, far away calling back. Not a howl, not a scratch, but a whisper from souls that had not yet been set free. And Nathan knew, no matter the chase, no matter the isolation, he and Rex would keep opening every door. Until no knock was left unanswered. 3 days after the final encounter in Tunnel R14, Nathan was officially suspended from duty. The decision came in a sealed envelope delivered to the station. No signature, only stamped with the seal of the Federal Administrative Oversight Office. The reason was clearly stated: violation of investigative procedures, use of tactical force without authorization, internal data breach. The red stamp was tilted, the ink still fresh. Cold. But Nathan was not surprised. He had known this moment would come, ever since the first time he opened that trailer door without permission. What he had not expected was how quickly they would come. That night, only he, Rex, and a stack of unsorted case files remained in the station. All of the investigative data images, video witness reports had been copied to an encrypted hard drive. The main server had been sealed, but the backup copy was hidden somewhere. No one would think to look directly beneath the floor padding where Rex slept every night. Rex seemed to know. Whenever a stranger stopped by the station, even just asking for directions, he would position himself over that exact spot, guarding the truth, or more accurately, guarding the children no one else was left to protect. Nathan moved into a temporary rental apartment on the south side of town. He never returned to his old home. He did not use his personal phone. All communication went through an encrypted device Laura had once given him. He no longer knew if Laura was fully on his side, but he believed she was not the kind of person to betray everything for money. If she was connected to the system, there had to be a reason. The real question was, what role was she playing in all of this? At 2 o'clock in the morning, a message lit up on his receiver screen: "Meet me where Rex howled the first time." No signature, no timestamp, no directions. Just one certainty: the sender had been watching him and Rex for a long time. He woke Rex. No command was needed. The dog jumped into the car as if he already knew where they needed to go. The old checkpoint, where it all began, where the first trailer had stopped beneath a flickering light, where Rex had scratched the door, where a howl had cut through the misty night. When they arrived, the site had been sealed off with yellow tape. Warning signs covered the gate, but there were no personnel, no patrol cars, just a scene that looked erased from any official map. Rex did not step inside. He sat near the edge of the grass where he had once growled and then sat down. Once again, he raised his head and howled. But this time, the howl was not piercing like before. It was low, rhythmic, and echoed like drums pounding from deep beneath the earth. And then from behind the trees near the station, a figure emerged. It was Laura. She was not wearing her usual blazer, just a windbreaker, dirty shoes, and a cap pulled low over her face. Rex did not react. No growl, no bark. He just stared long and steady into Laura's eyes, and then walked toward her. No attack, no defense. He let her place a hand on his head. "He remembers me," Laura said. Her voice did not carry guilt, only the weariness of someone who had returned from a place where no one comes back alive. "How are you involved?" Nathan asked direct. "I tried to fight them. Then they pulled me in. If I wanted to keep my sister alive, I had to play along." "Your sister?" Laura nodded. 14 years old. Went missing in Tucson. I searched for 3 years. In the end, all I found was a blurry video just like the ones you have now. Nathan clenched his fists. They called her a Tier 2 candidate. Not valuable enough to sell, but good enough for experiments. He pressed, "Who do you work for?" Laura gave a bitter smile. "The government does not know, or pretends not to. It is not in the system, not in any official program. It lives on the edge where everything defective gets cleaned up." She pulled out a small memory card and handed it to him. "This holds the list. 47 people were processed through the system. 12 confirmed alive. 8 confirmed dead. 27 unknown. But one name stands out." "What name?" Laura lowered her voice. "A high-ranking security officer, the former head of the Immigrant Child Safety Network." "That's not possible. He is the one who signed off on all the logistics codes every time they swapped records to cover their tracks." Rex barked sharply. In the distance, headlights flashed. A black SUV, no license plate, was approaching. "They found us," Laura said, stepping back toward the trees. "I cannot go with you, but Rex can. He has already marked the location of the final central holding site." "Where is it?" "In the old industrial cemetery behind the burned-out auto garage. The access point is not on any map. Only Rex can lead the way." The SUV stopped about 100 yards away. 4 people stepped out unarmed, but dressed like civilian logistics workers. Not police, not FBI, just the movers, the ones who do not appear in any system. Nathan and Rex turned and walked away. Laura disappeared into the darkness. And behind them, the SUV's lights kept flashing like a silent reminder that anyone who knows the truth will be hunted. The sky was still dark. The stars above seemed quiet, like millions of eyes that had already seen too much and now chose only silence. Nathan's old pickup rumbled westward past the dead suburbs toward the site of an auto shop that had burned in a mysterious fire 6 years ago. No one came near that place anymore, except for a few kids who used to play hide-and-seek, the kind who sometimes never came back. Rex sat in the backseat, eyes wide open. He tilted his head slowly, then let out a soft whine. "Here?" Nathan asked. No answer. Only a leap. Rex jumped from the truck as it stopped, darting past rusted fencing into a yard scattered with shattered brick and blackened glass. He did not slow down. The farther he went, the more certain he became. Nathan followed. They passed 3 collapsed warehouses, empty corridors that used to carry fuel lines. Then Rex stopped in front of a pit covered in metal mesh and chains. A brick had been pried loose, exposing soft soil beneath. Rex began to dig. Nathan understood. He peeled back the mesh, pushed the lid aside. A steel ladder appeared, descending into the earth like the open mouth of something waiting to devour them. The tunnel below was unlike any they had entered before. It was clean. No dust, no scent. Only one thing: absolute silence, like the walls themselves were sucking sound out of the air. After 12 minutes of walking, they reached a cylindrical room. In the center, a thick glass tank filled with pale blue liquid. Surrounding it were small monitors, all running data, yet none displaying a single word. Everything was still running. Nathan breathed slowly. He pulled out a mini camera and began recording. Rex whined. A faint mechanical sound echoed from the steel door behind them, like a system opening on its own. The door had no handle, but it clicked open. Inside was a room bathed in white. There were no people, just a row of tables. On top, stacks of numbered folders, no names, no photos, just codes, and one large monitor displaying a transport map, routes, times, trailer types, and a status line: operational, no response. Nathan ran his hand across the screen. In the lower corner was a small symbol, a seal, a triangle with a black circle in the center. He had seen it before, on Lila's wristband. Rex turned his head and howled. Not a warning howl, a calling. From inside the steel cabinet in the corner, a breath escaped. Nathan rushed over, broke the lock. Inside was a child, curled up, emaciated, barely responsive. But when Rex came close, the child reached out, touched Rex's head, as if he had seen him before in a dream. Nathan lifted the child out. On his wrist was a code: D46, non-standard batch, pending evaluation. The boy could not speak, but he looked straight at Nathan with the last flicker of humanity in his eyes. On the wall, a whiteboard displayed a red-marked line: final processing transfer to Tier 2, report to Central via Laura. Nathan stood frozen. No more doubt. She knew. And she kept going. By the time they emerged from the underground chamber, the sky was a dull gray. Nathan carried the child. Rex led the way. And then from a distance came the sound of a siren. Not police. A biohazard alert, the kind used only in cases of biological contamination. A voice broadcast from afar. This area is now under containment. All individuals must stop immediately. Nathan did not stop. He knew if he handed the child over, no one would ever see him again. He placed the boy in the back seat beside Rex and drove the opposite direction. Not back to the station, but into town where there were people, reporters, the internet. He would bring the child into the light along with the truth, even if it cost him his own freedom. The One. Behind the darkness. The town was still asleep. Fog draped over rooftops. Neon signs flickered in the distance. No one knew that a pursuit was unfolding on the very streets they walked every day. Nathan pulled into the side alley of an abandoned grocery store, once a gathering place for the Latin American community nearly a decade ago. He turned off the headlights, threw a tarp over the truck, then opened the rear door, laying the child down gently on an old blanket. Rex sat beside him, eyes unblinking. Nathan pulled out his laptop, inserted the memory card Laura had given him. On it was everything: the system's operations, transport videos, and one recording clear deep unaltered clear batch D46 within 48 hours. If it leaks, blame medical routing. Include code 3R7 in the report to Laura, and make sure Rex stays away. That dog remembers scent for too long. Nathan froze. That name was not just a code. 3R7 was the internal ID of the person he trusted most in the Federal Anti-Crime Division, his direct Superior Regional Director, Benedict Rawson. Everything snapped into place: the denied requests, the missing case files, the vague warnings from Laura from border locals, and Rex's very first howl. It had never been random. Benedict had buried it all. Nathan opened a live stream. He connected to 3 platforms using encrypted networks, attached the camera to his collar, filmed the child's face zooming in on the wristband labeled D46. He said nothing, no speeches, only the truth being seen. He left the feed running, then exited the truck alone. 3 hours later, the video had over 200,000 shares. The comments flooded in child trafficking, hidden trailers, human experiments. Journalists started searching the areas Nathan had been. The police remained silent, but that silence only made people believe more. A group of local volunteers led by a former Border Patrol agent searched the last known location of Nathan's transmission. They found only one thing: a blood-stained blazer left behind near the grocery wall. It belonged to Laura. There was no Nathan, no Rex, no child. But the camera was still recording. A week later, Benedict Rawson was officially suspended pending investigation. Public outcry surged. Child protection groups launched protests across multiple states. At a short press conference, a federal spokesperson said, "We have not verified the recording's authenticity, but we are committed to a full investigation." And shortly after that, every piece of news about the case began to disappear. A month later, a small box appeared on the doorstep of a local radio station. Inside was a hard drive and a handwritten note: "Do not believe everything on television, but do not be afraid to open your eyes." No signature. But on the back of the paper there was the faint imprint of a dog's paw. Rex might still be alive. Nathan too. But they were no longer part of the system. They had become outsiders, whistleblowers, people who shattered the darkness with the unwavering loyalty of a creature that did not know how to lie. The truth had come to light. But the price no one could have predicted. That winter came earlier than usual. Snow blanketed Highway number 18, leading toward the tri-state border zone, a place government maps often left unmarked because no one really wanted to go there. Laura sat inside an old delivery truck, one of those once used to haul frozen goods. In her hand was a small yellowed notebook. Its pages were scribbled in the clumsy handwriting of a child, once held in the underground facility. On the first page, only one line: "I dreamed of the light and a golden dog with sad eyes." Laura did not know when the child had written it. She did not know if the child was still alive or had already been taken like so many others. But that innocent line became her compass, a guide for people like her, those who had once stayed silent and now had no choice but to speak. After Nathan's live stream, Laura vanished, not out of fear, but because she understood if she stayed, she would be just another expendable link easily replaced so the machine could keep running. Instead, she withdrew, carrying with her copies of the data Nathan had backed up, and began her own journey to find the living witnesses, the children who had escaped but were never asked what they remembered. The first person she sought out was Sophia. Sophia was living at a produce farm in New Mexico under the name of an undocumented worker. But in truth, she was a survivor of an interstate trafficking ring. She had been locked inside a trailer for 19 hours, with no water, no air, no hope. It was Rex, during a cargo inspection 3 years ago, who had smelled something off inside that container. But Sophia had never told her story, not because she forgot, but because no one believed she was still alive. Laura came to her without a badge, no gun, no recorder. Just one question. When you were locked in that trailer, did you hear anything? Sophia closed her eyes, then opened them again and whispered, "There was a dog. It barked 3 times, then went silent. But later, it barked again, like it was saying, 'I am still here. I have not left you.'" That conversation was short, but to Laura it was all the confirmation she needed. Rex never left. Even when cast out of the system, even when lost in the storm of unseen forces, he had stayed. By the side of the weak, of the forgotten, of the nameless. From that moment, Laura made a decision. She would no longer run. As she headed back north, Laura passed through dozens of small towns. In each, she left behind printed folders from the hard drive, audio files of Benedict's voice images of transports, route maps, and diagrams of the underground structure. She sent them to schools, to churches, to radio stations, places where voices might travel slowly but deeply. In a small town in Oklahoma, an old priest greeted her. "You know, miss, things like this do not die. They just need a spark, a little flame, and that rotten system will collapse not from bullets, but from people who still fear their own conscience." When Laura left, light rain had begun to fall, but she did not roll up her window, because for the first time in a long while, she no longer felt like she was running. 8 months after Nathan disappeared, a group of independent journalists received an anonymous data package, along with coordinates to a deep forest near the Colorado border. There was no explanation, only a single faded line from a handwritten journal. Truth does not need to be believed. It only needs not to be forgotten. No signature, but those who had known Nathan recognized the handwriting. Laura got there before the media. She did not join the investigative team, did not wear a uniform, just a small backpack inside a notebook containing the final clues, coordinates, descriptions of strange howls from the eastern hills, and maps of sightings of a dog with no known owner that had rescued 3 lost children in a single month. Golden fur, scarred left eye, no collar but never attacked anyone. It was in the reports, but no one cared, except Laura. On her first day in the woods, she found nothing. On the second, the wind picked up, carrying the wet scent of moss and decaying leaves. But near a bend by a dried-up stream, she saw it, a human footprint in the soft dirt. And next to it, a dog's paw print, heavy, clear, as if it had stood there, waiting. She did not call, did not whistle. She simply sat down, placed an old photo on a flat stone, a picture of Nathan smiling with Rex lying at his feet. A faint sound came from behind. She turned, but saw nothing. That night, she pitched a tent near the stream. No fire, no comms, only her notebook and a recording. One of Nathan's special audio cues used during missions, a unique bark pattern. Laura played the sound. Once, twice, silence. And then, from the darkness, came soft footsteps, a rustle of grass, and a breath, not aggressive, not fearful, just presence. She did not turn. She extended her left-hand palm open. 1 second, 2. And then a cold nose brushed gently against her hand. Wet, soft, familiar. She began to cry. She did not have to look. She knew Rex was still alive, and he was still doing the only thing he was ever meant to do. Guard what little humanity remains in a world that had forgotten the line between right and wrong. By morning, Rex was gone, but beside her was a single item, Nathan's badge polished clean, placed next to a smooth, round stone, like the kind children used to play marbles. Laura said nothing. She took no photos, no evidence. She simply packed up quietly. Before leaving, she left behind a note. "If you are still here, keep going. I will handle the rest." Laura never returned to that forest, but in every town she passed through, people began to whisper. They had seen a strange dog, scarred eye, no collar, walking children across busy roads. Some said their cars nearly crashed, but a sudden bark made them stop just in time. Some elderly people swore a dog stood guard by their door all night and vanished before sunrise. No one had ever taken a picture of it. No one had managed to keep it still. But everyone described the same thing. Its eyes were sad, but never hopeless. Laura no longer worked in the investigative system. She became a temporary lecturer at a small college teaching a course called Ethical Journalism and Media Responsibility. In every class, she would share a story, no names, no official records, just enough so her students would never forget one truth. The truth can be drowned, but it cannot be buried, because somewhere there is always a soul that does not sleep, waiting to be seen. Rex, that soul, is still out there. It does not need medals. It just needs someone willing to carry the light forward. Nearly a year after Nathan's live stream, a closed-door hearing was held at the federal Capitol. It was not televised, and it was never widely announced. The official reason was to assess the potential existence of extra-legal operations within internal government and private infrastructures. The name of the investigation was Operation Hollow-Path. Only a few people were allowed to speak. Laura was one of them. She did not sit in the center of the room. She stood at the edge. And instead of presenting reports or documents, she brought only one black and white photo, an image captured by Nathan's hidden camera. It showed a child, frail and thin, holding tightly to a dog with a clouded left eye inside a steel room with no door. She placed the photo in front of the panel and spoke slowly. "This is not evidence. This is a question: who will protect the children who have no one to protect them?" No one answered, but the hearing was not postponed, and that alone was a quiet victory. After the hearing, several trailer routes were permanently shut down. More than 17 shipping companies came under investigation. 3 private security corporations were required to provide full reports. No one was officially charged, but the wall of silence had been cracked. What Laura and people like her had done was not about exposing every name. It was about making the world unable to look away. As for Nathan, no one really knew where he had gone. The police said he had fled the country. Some rumors claimed he had been eliminated, but those who believed in the story told a different version. They said there was a man with long hair wearing black gloves who showed up at truck stops along the highways, always asking the children, "Are you all right?" One old woman said, "He is not looking for the bad guys. He is looking for the kids no one else is looking for." And Rex became a question no one could explain with logic. It appeared and disappeared like a ghost. But in the darkest and most dangerous places just before something terrible was about to happen, people said they heard a quiet bark and saw a golden blur pass by like moonlight. One fall evening, Laura returned to a small cemetery in southern Kansas. It was where the unnamed children had been buried after the final operation. She placed white flowers at each grave. There were no names, just ID codes. Under the glow of a lantern, she opened her notebook. For the first time, she wrote down the real names of the children based on information recovered from the data backups. When she reached the last name, her hand froze. A breath touched her shoulder. There was no wind, no person. She turned around. There was no one there, only a faint set of dog prints on the soft ground leading from the row of graves to the far fence line. Laura closed her notebook. She did not cry, because in that moment, she knew no one truly disappears. They simply become a part of those who are still alive, those who are willing to look the truth in the eye. and still choose to move forward. The final video ever posted on Nathan's personal channel appeared exactly 1 year after his disappearance. It showed only one scene, dim lighting, a shaky camera, and a misty forest. No voiceover, no music. But at the 17th second, a golden dog walked into frame and looked directly into the camera. Its left eye was clouded, its right eye clear and warm. There was a small line of text under the video. "I am not a hero. I just walk with the children who need someone to walk with them." The video reached over 10 million views within 3 days, but no one could trace who had uploaded it. And then, everything faded into silence. There were no more headlines, no more hearings, only those who quietly kept going. Not to defeat evil, but to remind the world that doing what is right does not need applause. It just needs to continue. If you have stayed with us all the way to the very end, thank you. Thank you for listening to a story that is not easy, but deeply necessary to tell. If you believe that justice should never be silent, if you believe that souls like Rex Nathan and the children who were lost deserve to be remembered, then leave a comment below. Just one sentence, one thought. That alone is enough to prove that someone is still watching. And if you want to walk alongside stories like this, quiet journeys that reach the core of our humanity, then subscribe to this channel. Not to grow numbers, but to help keep the light alive, even if it is only one small flame. Thank you for being here.